Welcome to Conversations from the Edge of Consciousness. I'm your host, Kristine Madera. For me, and possibly for you, the inner world of consciousness has always been much more real and way more fun than the so-called real material world. Growing up, I thought I was alone in this, but I'm not. There are a lot of us, and far too many have no one to talk to who shares this experience. I've been lucky to cultivate a community of friends who love to talk about the energies, ideas, and vibrations that are pushing the edges of our own consciousness, as well as our collective consciousness. In Conversations from the Edge, we share our conversations with you. Welcome to Conversations from the Edge. This is your host, Kristine Madera, and we are back with Jana Roemer. And Jana has 20 years of study and 13 years of teaching with her two great loves, astrology and yoga nidra, and has combined them to create astro nidras, which is a luscious lying down meditation where you begin to activate the flow of astrological energies through your body. She is also building a virtual temple called Attuned to the Moon, where you find even more astrology embodied in different practices that really help you to attune yourself to the astrology that's flowing through the body and use it to improve your life and flow with life as it is moving rather than fighting it like we often do. So welcome back, Jana. It's nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me again.
Did I miss anything, or is there anything you want to add about yourself or what you're doing that was not part of the introduction?
I think that one of the things that I'm doing is connecting people so deeply with the astrology or where the astrology lives inside the body that most people that stick around for a while find that when they read what the astrology is, they're already so aligned with it. Mm-hmm. And so it becomes less of a intellectual process and more of a felt experience and an observation of life.
Well, I can say after our last conversation on Aries that you really do know how it's layered in the body and moves through the body. So I can't imagine how you couldn't be doing some of those practices and some of the things that you lead and not have that activation within you. So I'm excited about it. And I think other people are getting excited about it. And I'm excited to talk about Taurus, which is our new energy coming up.
Yes. Taurus is one of my favorite signs. So last time we chatted about Aries, we talked about it being fire, a cardinal fire. And this time in Taurus, it is fixed earth. And so it is the earthiest of all the earth signs. It doesn't want to move. It's like a mountain, it's like immovable earth. And one of the little factoids from medical astrology that has always stood out to me about Taurus is that life force burns slower in Taurus season.
Interesting.
And and so it's interesting to me because most times when you go from one sign to another, the transition point from one to another, they're often in contrast to each other. So where Aries is this initiation of fire and getting things going, and maybe they're not the best finishers of projects, but they're the best starters of projects. Taurus is like, okay, you might take a while to get a Taurus started on something, but once they start, they see it through. They dive in. The determination to bring the whatever it is that they're doing to completion is one of the best out of the entire zodiac. I mean, I will say there are other places that are really hardworking, but I mean, it's a bull. Taurus is represented by the bull. It's got strength. It's immovable. It can be domineering. The joke in the astrological world about Taurus is that everything's all good as long as it comes back to my needs, but I need where I'm going. Which isn't too big of a deviation from Aries,
right? Yeah.
Where Aries is still me. But that's because when we're looking at the different archetypes as we go around the zodiac, we actually are starting at birth. And as we go around, we end at death. So Taurus is still quite young. Yeah. But have you ever seen, maybe in a world without devices, a little kid get really, really into something? Like think of a little baby discovering its hands for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like they're just tripping out on their hands. They're like, whoa. And they're looking at it from all the different angles, and they get completely lost in that world and this fascination. And then that turns into the determination to walk. Right.
Yeah.
And once that baby, like you watch a baby in their development, I know with both of my boys, their determination came from desire. And so the desire, like I remember my firstborn, he wanted, when he started crawling, he wanted something that was just out of his reach. And it was only through that desire to get that thing that he wanted that he then figured out how to move and how to get that thing. And so it's that determination is a really key signature of Taurus. And that since life force burns slower, you're not in a rush. It's like you just stay steady with what you're doing. And so Taurus often has a quality, the Taurus archetype, pardon me, also often has a quality of presence that is unmatched.
You know, if we look back at what we talked about last time with the Aries and what you just said about the desire in Taurus and the determination, I mean, it's kind of an extension of there's that rupture of the birth process that happens through you, and the desire of developmental stages is something that's encoded in you. Like you don't really have a choice. It's kind of a primal drive and a primal moving forward, and it carries you with it, as opposed to being something that, you know, you're laying there thinking of all the things that I could do. I could walk, I could crawl, I could lay here and play with my hands, but it's not, there's this drive. And the drive comes from that, you know, it's an extension of that rupturing drive. At least that's how I was hearing it. I don't know if that's how
I
you were
love
intending it, but for me, a lot of these things that come through you, they're things that are chosen for you in the sense that there's this flow of life force and you're along the ride with the life force to a certain degree. And there's a lot of things you can choose later on, but up in the beginning, like the life force flows and you're flowing with it and you don't fight it. You just roll with it, and you've got that expression of it as you grow, and it's so beautiful. And at some point later on, we all shut it off and, you know, struggle. But in the beginning, it has its own thing. It's its own force, and it's magical to watch.
Yes, and that is so Taurus. That you're nailing it. You're an astrologer. You just didn't know. Or at least you're getting it really quickly.
Okay.
So one of the things that I find quite interesting is that, riffing a little bit further on this quality of presence that they have that goes with determination, Taurus itself is an archetype. It lives in the ears and the nose and the neck and the throat, but really where it lives and where its real majesty is through the five senses.
Okay.
And so part of the Taurus archetype's karma that they have to work out in this life is to develop a sense of self-worth. And the self-worth is foundational to finding a voice, which comes next. But see, it's the throat, but it's not the voice box. That would be more Gemini, but it's the throat. It's like we're building the foundation to move into speech. Right. And so we build that confidence, like learning how to walk. I can just imagine in a little kid, like a 1-year-old learning how to walk, like how proud they must be, like how hugely confidence building that is, to go from stillness or wiggling and rolling to crawling to walking. Like these are foundational confidence building stages of life. And one of the, you know, raising children myself right now, I dance around with different parenting techniques. And there's this one philosophy where you don't help the kids with anything, you know, like you let them figure it out. So you can put the stuff in front of them or you can show them things, but you let them figure it out on their own. And then there's, you know, I would say more my children's grandparents' generation that like to just do things, or maybe it's just a personality type that does that. I don't know, but like doing things for them all the time. And I was observing this in my own children and different people that they're interacting with, whether somebody's doing it for them or whether they're doing it on their own. And what I notice is when somebody's doing it for them, it's actually robbing them of the opportunity to develop that self-confidence or that self-worth.
Yes.
And when you let them figure it out on their own, even if it takes 10 times longer than you have the patience for, you let it happen because you know that that's the foundational building block of their confidence and their self-worth.
Mm-hmm. And it actually builds brain synapses to be able to figure those things out. It's a brain development to let kids try and fail, and try again, and then figure it out. And I mean, there's a archetypal thing in there as well, but it's also so important to develop that determination. And if you never have to figure things out on your own, like that whole determination thing, there's a missing piece in there.
Exactly. And then if you watch them, what they're doing, they're when they're little, they're picking it up, they're putting it in their mouth almost instantly. They're feeling it. They're using all of their senses to get to know whatever it is that they're trying to figure out. They're looking at it, they're tasting it, they're rubbing it, maybe they're smelling it, it's all the senses that give them the information that help them to decode or to problem solve whatever they're doing. And so this is part of the development of this Taurus archetype. Also, think about how the 5 senses always bring you into presence. They always bring you into presence. Yeah. So as an adult, like I can't breathe in the past. I can't smell in the past. I can't speak in the past. I can't smell, like the senses, they bring you right here into this present moment. They might trigger a memory or something, and that's fine. But it's like you're having the experience in the moment. And so because life force burns slower in Taurus season, it gives us this really cool opportunity to slow down, to become more acquainted with our world and the things that we have, like our food and our home and our like snuggling with your partner, or, like all of our 5 senses that bring us into greater presence. And by bringing ourselves into greater presence, we actually get to see the gift of our own aliveness. And so,
I love that.
Right. And that determination then serves us in those moments to stay there. And, Taurus are some of the most reliable, loyal, trustworthy, compassionate. They're lovers. They're ruled by Venus, right? And Venus, I mean, come on, we all want Venus on our side, Venus is like bringing harmony and prosperity in relationships. And so Taurus also really, really understands humans, like understands relations. And one of their other pieces of life work is to individuate themselves in order to then be in that compassionate relationship. So I have a soft spot for Tauruses. I happen to be married to one, but they are like giant hearts with arms and legs.
Wow.
When you have a Taurus on their bad side, of course, that determination can turn into stubbornness. But usually they kind of know how to make things taste better or smell better or feel better. And so if you listen to a Taurus, you can learn some things. They're really good in the kitchen. They're really good with, I think I was mentioning this in that first podcast where we talked about where it lives in the body. They can like sniff out alignment. Like this is a good relationship. This isn't a good relationship.
Yeah, we did
based
talk
off
about
smell.
that. Yeah.
So it's interesting. And so when we start to look at the season of Taurus season, I believe it begins on the 20th again this year. We've got I'm wrong, the 19th. But something that's really interesting, just right the day before on the 18th, is that we have the Sun conjunct Mercury. And when we look at the Mercury cycles throughout the year, what happens is we have Mercury conjunct the Sun, and then a retrograde comes along and we get a Mercury conjunct, or we get Mercury retrograde conjunct the Sun. And from our perspective on Earth, it looks like Mercury like does these little loops around the zodiac, around the sky, but it's an optical illusion. And so the day before we start Taurus season, we have the Sun conjunct Mercury. And so it's a cycle reset that we saw back in, I guess that would have been Aquarius season during the Mercury retrograde in Aquarius. And so we kind of kick off this season with a reset of our communication patterns yet also of our commerce, our relationship with community. And we say short distance travel. So like community, local area, your acquaintances, that smaller little world. And I love that, because Taurus is going to remind you to spend time in your community. And so I think this is a very nice match. And then the other thing that happens is that we have Mercury in Taurus. We have a little bit more spacious living during Taurus season. It's not quite as jam-packed. We have
nice. That'll be a nice, refreshing change.
Isn't it though? And we have Mars, who has caused so much ruckus for the last half of 2020. Mars is going to be in Cancer. And so with Mars in Cancer, first of all, it's not a super, super good match, but it softens Mars in a big way. Like, if Cancer is the divine mother and the archetype of love and nurturing and self-care and, the vulnerability, to have Mars in Cancer, well, the sun is in Taurus and Mercury's in Taurus, and, it's just going to be a really nice journey. And then also we'll have Venus in Taurus. So it's just, it's so nice. I'm really looking forward to it. Some of the things that could potentially be a little bit more challenging to watch for is on the 24th of April, which is just coming into the latter half of the first week of Taurus season. We have Venus square Saturn. And so Venus is the ruler of Taurus. And so Venus is going to be stronger during Taurus season, because it gets lit up. It's like if we have those little magnets in us that I was talking about last time that like stand up to the archetype, the planets also have, when the archetype is there, the planet that goes with that archetype gets a little more vocal space in the realm of astrology. And so Venus is our prosperity, our harmonics, our relationships. It's often all the things we really like. It's going to be squaring Saturn. And Saturn's like that grumpy old uncle that gives you that tough love and boundaries and constrictions, and Saturn's the lord of karma, and so you get some tough lessons. Saturn's going to make sure that you're in integrity, and so on the 24th we've got that square happening, and so it might be a day where, and again, I love how last time we chatted you reminded people that everything is in transit, so it's temporary. It's just a time. It comes and it goes. But when we see Venus square Saturn, it can disrupt things like our money. Maybe there's like a bigger bill that shows up, or that's one of many different possibilities.
Would it be something that you could think about as in, if I know that Saturn is showing up in this area and with this sign, that this is a chance for me to look at how I'm not in integrity and how I could become in greater integrity, and use that as propelling yourself toward being more alignment with the higher side of Saturn, with the kinder side of Saturn, and with the higher lessons of Saturn, instead of like being frightened by Saturn. Because I've got a great relationship with Saturn, and we talked about this off air at one point. I had a friend, and she tunes into everything, and we're sitting having tea one day, and she said, she goes, Saturn is here and it wants to introduce himself to, or he wants to introduce himself to you. And I'm like, okay. I felt this energy slide in from the left side of my body. And I still, when I call on Saturn, sometimes I do it just for fun, but I'll feel this beautiful energy flowing in from the right side of my body. And I hadn't really paid attention to Saturn before, but when I looked it up, everybody's like, ooh, Saturn bad. And I'm like, ooh, Saturn good. Like it feels so good. And I think if you're working with the energies and the higher lessons of Saturn, it can help you to become a person with more integrity and more in alignment with your deeper passage, rather than something that's always going to bring up your karma and make things uncomfortable.
Well, and that's just it. And what we have to be doing is our Saturn work. So Saturn, like you said, integrity. And in this case, because Saturn's going to square Venus and then Mercury the very next day. In this case, what we can do is we can have a look at our values, because Venus is our values. And when we know our values and when we're living by our values, then it's easier to live in integrity. And so if we have those two on point, like you do your Venus work, you get your values, which also is Taurus season work. every Taurus season, I renew my values. Like, what are my top 3 values for myself? I usually get my husband to join in a conversation about what are our family values. I look at the value of whatever, like my values in whatever I'm creating. It's one of the things that we work on the Taurus new moon, which I can talk about in a second.
Okay.
But if you have those and then you're living in alignment with your values, what values tend to do is take out the guesswork. If I'm trying to make a decision, the decision, it's in alignment with my values or it's out of alignment with my values. And so it's easier then. It's like, oh, obviously I'm going to go this way because that's the alignment. And then Saturn's the same thing with integrity. So what does integrity mean to you? And so I think Saturn can be, like you said, one of our best friends. And that's exactly where we want Saturn. We want Saturn in that
sliding right
spot.
in from the left side of your body. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the weekend of the 24th and 25th might be a time where you're just like, but so Saturn squares Venus and then it squares Mercury. And if you've done your good Saturn work and you've done your good Mercury work with your values and your integrity, then Saturn will actually reward you. Saturn pays you too. That's the thing people forget. Saturn pays you. You don't just do the hard work for the sake of working. You get paid from Saturn. And
I need
Saturn
to have a conversation with Saturn.
Right? We all like, yeah, exactly. And then just shortly after that, maybe it makes sense to me because I understand the geometry of astrology, but because Saturn was squaring both Venus and Mercury, shortly thereafter, then Mercury and Venus come together for a conversation. They're conjunct. And that's a cycle reset. These ones reset quite frequently. It's not big, it's not huge news, but it's worth working with. And so when Mercury and Venus come together, it's like, are you walking your talk? Or are you just putting pretty things on paper? Right? Like, are you just posting good quotes on Instagram? Or are you actually living that in your home? Because Taurus is the home. It's your house. It's your assets. It's your material world. And then it's your senses. And there's some relational stuff in there because it's Venus. And so we're going to come into that little window of time right at the beginning of Taurus season, where if you're not doing your work, it could get really messy. And if you are doing your work, it's like you'll find flow. And this flow is a slow flow because it's Taurus, but things will start to come together. And I don't know about you, but I am so ready to have a stretch of time where things are coming together. And so that work to set yourself up for that is so, so worth it. Right?
Yeah.
So when we're looking at the archetypes, you always have to look at the opposite sign in order to really understand the depth or the wholeness of the sign that you're looking at. And do you know what the sign
I had Scorpio when you said depth. That's why I was laughing, because I'm in addition to being a Scorpio sun sign and many other Scorpio things, I'm a Scorpio south node and a Taurus north node. So I spend a lot of time looking at the contrast between those two as I shift from being a heavy duty Scorpio toward what I consider to be like the fresh breath of air of Taurus.
The fresh breath of air. Well, I guess if you've been in the like deep transformative waters of Scorpio for a long time, you're like, get me out of here.
Crawl up the mountain of Taurus and like take a nap in the grass. Yeah.
Exactly. With the sun on you. It's so nice.
Yeah. And Saturn just dropping money down like raindrops on me. And wouldn't that be great?
Wouldn't that be? But if you're in integrity and if you're in alignment and you've got right relations and you're aligned with your values, you don't actually have to focus on making money because the money will follow. That's what Saturn's saying. Do the work and the money will follow. So the Scorpio full moon is the first bigger moon of Taurus season.
Okay. All right.
And do you remember what I said about how Taurus are like some of the most loyal of the archetypes? Well, so is Scorpio. This is a signature of this axis. The thing about Scorpio is if you cross them or betray them, you're basically dead to them. Taurus, on the other hand, they might be stubborn. They might make you pay for it, but they'll come around because they're lovers. So they're both lovers, actually, but they're different. They're a little bit different. Scorpio is ruled by Mars and Pluto, where Taurus is ruled by Venus. And so it's got a softer side to it.
Yeah.
But at the time of the full moon, we have a Taurus stellium. So we've got the sun, we've got Uranus, we've got Venus and Mercury all in Taurus. And I want to be able to say that this full moon is just super chill and lovely, and you can snuggle up on the couch with a nice cashmere blanket watching Netflix and everything's going to be good. But the thing is, we've got Uranus in Taurus. And so Uranus, again, is this disruptor, the awakener, the unexpected. So I don't even know exactly what to say about this full moon other than we can expect the unexpected. It's square, not a tight square, but it's in a loose square to Saturn. So some of the way that we can mitigate that is to have done our Saturn work, which if you're following along so far in the astrology, you would have done, right? Yeah. And then another thing that we can develop through this moon, and I think this is so important for spiritual and personal development work, is can you build intimacy with the unknown? Right? Because Taurus wants things to be certain, safe, secure. And Scorpio is like, we don't know what's going on. I'm going to take you in all kinds of journeys and you're going to have to figure it out because I'm not going to not take you on these journeys. And so what I see in this moon is this opportunity to develop this intimacy with the unknown. We've got lots of things that are secure. You know, we've got lots of things that are safe. Some people are blessed enough to have been able to really curate their home to be the safe spot by now. You know, I think that's been a major focus for the last year for so many people is how can I create a safe home? Although I do recognize that being at home has become more unsafe for some people as well. So that's why I want to just like acknowledge that and be present to the whole experience. But what Taurus is helping us to see are the things that we have that keep us safe, that remind us of our worth, that we can rely on, that are loyal, which create the environment to allow us to go into that unknown. Right? It's like you want to dive to the bottom of the ocean, but you have to put your scuba gear on first because you know that scuba gear is going to let you continue to breathe while you go under.
Well, and if you think about it from that developmental standpoint too, that, you know, in that young time of your life, having a safe home allows you to be in the adventure of everything that's new because you don't have to be unsettled about, you know, where's my food coming from? And, you know, all of these things that for young children are provided without thought, like they're hopefully that they're there, they're provided. You've got a, you know, safe parents, you've got a safe place to be, you've got a place to sleep, you've got your food, you've got all those things that you need so that you can really adventure in the unfolding of the unknown and of life, which when you're that age, everything is new. Everything is unknown.
Yeah. And the reality is it always is.
Yeah.
We just start to live in the facade of safety or security or certainty. But the spiritual path is not one of certainty. It's actually the uncertain path that is the spiritual path, you know?
Yeah. And I think that like now, especially after 2020, when so much was disrupted and we're having to find different ways of experiencing safety, like really understanding what it is and how much it's been as facade and what is actually true and safe. And that the truest, safest thing is to feel like connected with ourself and our higher self and to know that we are part of something larger than just the moment by moment experience of having a human body.
Exactly. Yeah. I love the way you bring it together.
Thank you.
So if we run on this theme, we've got the Scorpio full moon on the 26th. And in some places it will actually be the 27th because it's quite, and I look at things in PST because I'm on the West Coast, but so yeah, it'll be the 26th or 27th. The very next day, or perhaps the same day, the 27th, Pluto, which is the ruler of Scorpio, stations retrograde. And this is Pluto. Okay, so Pluto is death, transformation, and rebirth. And it is the planet that shows you like your soul strength power. But also what Pluto really is the underworld. Pluto isn't death. Pluto is like what happens after death, right?
Yeah.
And so Pluto's stationing retrograde right after this full moon. And then 4 days later, the sun is conjunct Uranus. And so let's just decode this a little bit.
Okay.
We're not meant to be going super external in the underworld journey. What we're meant to be doing is going into the depths of our own being. And Pluto retrograde is not something that will show up like Mercury retrograde does. Pluto spends 5-ish months every single year retrograde. Wow. It's like so common that we don't even really pay that close of attention. But what I feel it does for us is what it's asking us to do is just remember to invert the lens. Like remember to look inward more than you're looking outward, to source your power, to source your support systems, right? And so the 27th, it stations retrograde. Then 4 days later, on the 30th, we have the sun conjunct Uranus. And again, I mentioned it's like disruption, but it's also awakening. And so here's this little journey of like, okay, we've got the things that keep us safe. We've got our home set up in such a way. I'm indulging in my senses. I got my right people. I'm working on that determination to learn or build or become or whatever it is that what your personal signature is. And then it's saying, okay, look in, because there's going to be a little bit of disruption that happens here. I don't know what that disruption is going to be because we have to expect the unexpected this week. But can you find the stability within self so that it doesn't matter what the circumstances are externally, that trust and loyalty between self and self, the belief that you are capable of anything. And that's where this healthy development of self-worth and confidence really comes into play and is reinforced as our Taurus work this year.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah,
it's big.
That's so
I know
cool.
it's big work. Like, I don't want to just say, oh, just, get your self-worth in order. Because as somebody who, I struggled with self-worth for ages and ages and ages. And it was actually through the practice of yoga nidra that I cleaned up my self-worth. Obviously everybody has it come up from time to time, but for me, it's not like it was, it's not crippling and it's not, I actually believe that I have value to add to the world, which are all just really key Taurus words right there. So, and then we just get this like slow burn with that. It's like, okay, can you validate yourself? Can you self-validate instead of look for validation external? Can you recognize the way that you add value to the world around you? And there are different things that come up along the way, but I would say if we look at May 2nd, we've got some helpful, harmonious energy between Pluto and Mercury. And then right the very next day, we have some squares happening again. But now we're starting to get really familiar with these squares because it's like Mercury and Jupiter again. It's the sun and Saturn, which isn't something that we're necessarily familiar with. But if you've been doing your Saturn work, this sun square Saturn on the 3rd of May is no big deal, because all it's going to do here is mess you up in your idea of self if you're out of integrity in order to get you into integrity. Or what it could potentially do is Saturn's tool is time. And so it could illuminate the timing of your life. Like, you can't have it right now because it's not your time. But when it is your time, you'll get it. Everything comes in its own time. And so that's sort of what that story takes us through. But what I really want to bring forward in Taurus season is this harmonious, somewhat challenging, but very helpful energy that started way back on the Aquarius new moon in February. And so we have on the Aquarius new moon in February, Jupiter and Venus came together. And Jupiter and Venus are the benefic planets. They just want to help you. They just want your life to be good. They want you to have abundance. They want you to have good love. They want you to be in right relationship. They want you to have harmony. Whatever you're focusing your attention on, Jupiter is going to expand. Although to be fair, if we're focusing on that, which we won't want, Jupiter will give you that because it assumes that you're putting your attention on the things that you want. So that's some homework, right? But they're coming together they're squaring. It's a square, so it's challenging.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe a square between Venus and Jupiter on the 8th of May is only helping you. It's only helping you. I look at this and I'm like, okay, it's going to help you get back on track. It's going to help you refocus. It's going to adjust your harmonics so that you're in greater alignment with whatever it is that you're desiring right now. And so I think that is like a nice day to be aware of so that you can make sure that you're focusing on the right things. If you're mad at somebody, you can just like write a nasty letter and rip it up and put it aside and come back to it after the weekend. Yeah, come back to it after the weekend. But just like tuck it away, like put it in a like standby box, right? And then like focus on what it is that you want the weekend of the 7th, 8th, and 9th of May. So, and it has the moon in Aries. So it's good for initiating happening over that weekend. And then there's a transition for Venus. It's moving from Taurus into Gemini. And so that also I think is helpful because now it's wanting you to be more in community. It's wanting you to be a bit more social so you can celebrate. You can like have the conversations. You can have the wine. You can have the whatever. You're not going to be punished. It's nice. It's nice. I love this. I love this time for us. I think it's really nice.
Wonderful, honestly.
Right?
Because it's so easy to kind of let things slide by, and you know the harder elements always seem to show themselves, and the more peaceful elements are not always so apparent. And so being able to like put a big gold star on your calendar to say enjoy the day of celebration and find things to celebrate and really bask in that energy. I mean, that basking in wonderful energy seems very Taurus to me.
Yes. Taurus is like, please find pleasure in your day. Find beauty. Make it feel good. That's what Taurus wants you to luxuriate in the way that we've been living in such upheaval. Like, and that's the other reason why I wanted to bring it up is because you had permission to feel good. Like, remember, we are meant to find pleasure in our lives. We're meant to feel good. We're meant to enjoy. And so this time is just reminding us like, hey, it's cool. You can have fun. Even amongst great suffering, you can have a big jolly laugh and, you know, you can be with both the suffering and the joy at the same time. And you don't need to feel guilty. It's like guilt-free indulgence. And then the new moon in Taurus is on the 11th of May. And this new moon, it's like a little cluster of planets. They're in Taurus and they're in Gemini.
Okay.
And so the moon itself is at the later degrees of Taurus, which is nice because it's more mature. You know, the younger new moons, they're a bit younger and they don't quite know the Taurus energy as deeply. This is more mature. It's more weathered. It's more seasoned. It's fixed. It's, you know what you want, you know how you want it, you know what you like, and you know how you know, like it's there, you've got that. And then what is cool is that this moon has Mercury and the North Node together in Gemini. And the North Node is about our destiny. It's about our path. It's about our purpose. It's our soul's journey. And it's conjunct Mercury, which is the messenger. And so I look at this like, one of my teachers is Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he says, why do we always wait for trauma or for tragedy to transform? Why don't we choose to transform through joy? Why don't we choose to transform through choice and our own desires? And the first time I heard him say that, I was just kind of dumbfounded by it because it's so simple and it makes so much sense, but it's generally not the way we operate.
No, but it is very Taurian. Like, I mean, I go back to the child development because it's such an easy model to look at. But, you know, everything is about transformation at that age. And it is all done from curiosity and that deep determination that comes through. And just that the joy of expressing yourself, and the joy of learning to talk and saying no, and the joy of learning to walk, and all of these things that really do come from that desire and that joy, and that allowing the life force and all those things are encoded in us to begin to blossom, like a flower blossoms, and move us forward. And so to me, that it, like, from joy, which we stopped doing at some point in our life, but it's the energy of that joyful transformation that really is the journey, like the developmental journey of that age group.
Exactly. And so this moon is saying transform through your joy. Of course, there's a couple things in there that might get you. The Chiron is exactly square Mars. And so there might be a little fight. And I just look at that as an ego battle. Honestly, that is just your own ego that is making you feel guilty for being in joy. Or, I hear a lot of people that are thriving over this year saying, but it's not fair that I get to thrive when so many are suffering. And yes, I see all of that, but that doesn't mean that you take on the suffering. That means you take your joy, you take your privilege, and you do something with it to help relieve more suffering. We don't drop into the suffering because there's suffering. We help, we serve, but the ego that says you're not worthy of it or whatever, I think that will be more the battle in here than because it's Chiron and it's Mars, and Mars is the ego and Chiron is our wounds. But at the same time, Mars is in this beautiful sextile to Uranus. And so if we can witness the ego, and we can choose our joy, and we can choose our pleasure, and we can choose our own transformation, we can choose our trajectory, through our values and what we want to really create for ourselves in this life, there's this chance for awakening. And so it's like insights, like, whoa, I didn't realize I could have it like that. Cool. Right. But we have to prep the soil to receive that kind of insight,
Right. Yeah.
So there's a little bit of action around that new moon, but that's like new moons,
It's a new moon.
That's a new moon. New moons are resetting. You're meant to go inward. A new moon, you're closer to the other side of the veil. Like the veil is thinner, and so we have a greater access to our intuition, and the intuition is trying to help us grow and up level ourselves. And so it would make sense that we would see something that is not helpful in order for us to transform it. It's kind of simple if you look at it that way.
Well, it really is. I love the whole thing, the archetype and the body aspect and the developmental aspect and everything, and how it all goes together and then is influenced by these other planets. But that these large energy transits that we're moving through that give us really the opportunity to go introspective and look at the world and see what it's reflecting back, and go back in and let it be a dance all the way through that sun sign, as you go from the beginning all the way through to kind of the mature aspect of that sign. It's really a nice thought process with that too, about the freshness of the sign, and then how do you grow and develop in that month during that sign, and use those energies in a more mature and steady way. I mean, it's a wonderful way to begin to approach cyclical personal development.
Yeah. And there's other things that we could look at too. If somebody wanted to up level their financial situation, Taurus season is an incredible time to budget. It is, you are so supported to look at your family budget, your home budget, your work budget, like whatever it is, to look at your money situation, because Taurus rules money. Venus rules money, and so like to reset that and make a plan for your year around this new moon, that's a good idea. That's not a bad idea. I actually, last year on my new moon circle, I brought in somebody to do values work, and I've been searching for somebody who can do money work. Like, how can we be in right relationship with money? Or like, who doesn't? Lots of people don't even know how to make a budget. So that's something, we'll see how that all pans out. But and then another thing that, now this is a major energy shift that happens in Taurus season, and it happens for about 2.5 months, where Jupiter, who I mentioned before with that Jupiter-Venus conjunction. So Jupiter is the largest planet in the solar system. They say planet Earth could fit inside Jupiter 1,300 times.
Oh my gosh.
Massive. It's hard for us to conceptualize that.
Yeah.
And Jupiter is known as the guru planet, and it's because it's the heaviest planet, and all things kind of roll towards Jupiter. But what's interesting about Jupiter is that he won't hunt you down to give you the benefit of himself. He just hangs out and waits for you to come. And so that's why highlighting those days with the Jupiter stuff are actually quite important, because you could miss them really easily. But what's happening on the 13th of May is Jupiter up until the 13th of May, has been traveling in Aquarius. And everybody's been talking about it. If you're paying attention to astrology, it's like Jupiter in Aquarius. And I've even heard quite a few astrologers say Jupiter spends the rest of the year in Aquarius. But it's not true, because Jupiter moves into Pisces on the 13th. And Jupiter in Aquarius and Jupiter in Pisces are very different signatures. So Taurus wants to sit on the couch and watch Netflix and chill. Taurus wants to spend time in the kitchen and make a 5-course meal, right? Like Taurus is like luxuriating. Jupiter in Pisces wants to rest. Jupiter in Pisces wants to dream. Jupiter in Pisces wants to sleep, wants to spend time alone. And it's like this deeply restful, restorative time. Now, if we deny Jupiter in Pisces that rest, that sleep, that dreaminess, it actually turns into chaos.
Really?
Yes, because think about your mind. Let's say you pull an all-nighter. You pull an all-nighter, you're cramming for whatever it is you're cramming for, a big presentation or whatever it is, and you get everything organized, and then you have a 30-minute nap, and then you go off to your presentation and you can't find the words. It's chaotic. You can't find presence. Your like eyes are scratchy. The room is smaller than it should be. You're not able to make eye contact with everybody in the room because you haven't given yourself what you need in order to have the presence required to indulge and show up in your highest and best. And so when we deny it, because it's Jupiter, it's amplifying everything. So it's amplifying your need for rest. It's amplifying your need for dreaming. And if we don't give it to ourselves, our psyche is going to be like, why are you not sleeping? Why are you not resting? Why are you not giving me space to dream? And it's going to kick up some dirt and make a fuss and create chaos, so that finally you're just like, I got to get out of here and go have a nap.
All right. Well, that's good to know. I'll put that on the calendar too then.
Yeah. And I think it's worthy to know. So this goes from May until, I think it's mid-July. It's somewhere around there. It's like 2.5 months that Jupiter spends time in Pisces. So for yourself, knowing that Taurus life force burns slowly and wants to spend a bit more time in the house and on the couch and indulging. Pisces now wants you to sleep more. Now, the world may not see this. The world is already living overtaxed, overstressed, in anxiety, insomnia, all these things. And so this work that we've done to create a safe home and to have our own support systems, to have our connection to the inner world, that Scorpio full moon work of stability within uncertainty, all of that comes into play here now. And our job is, if there is chaos external, we manage ourselves by giving us that rest and that dream time and, that time alone. And so I personally am planning to set my life up in such a way that I can have more rest and also to be in support of those that don't understand that they need that yet.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, my whole world is based off helping people learn to rest. And we teach what we need.
We all need. Yes.
Yeah. So, and then once Jupiter, I think this is, astrology never makes mistakes. Once Jupiter moves into Pisces, we really don't have anything happening for 3 full days. The only thing that happens for 3 days is that the moon moves into Cancer, which is self-care, nourishment, self-love. And so those are dates definitely to mark on the calendar. Like, do not schedule yourself if you can help it, but definitely do not overschedule yourself. Like, let this be this little hallway in your life. It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, May 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th, where you have unstructured daydream, wander in the forest, whatever your thing is, where you just don't need to report to anyone, where you can have a nap at 2:00, or you can go to bed at 7:00, or like just let that time be free, because there's a big recalibration that happens when Jupiter changes signs. And so let it happen, because Jupiter is powerful in Pisces. Jupiter is at home in Pisces. Jupiter loves Pisces. And Pisces' other ruler, Neptune, is also in Pisces. And so these two planets are at home now together, meaning we have greater access to our spiritual practices, to merge with source, to remember who we are as a divine being. And I just want to reflect in with this is, you talk to a lot of people who have got onto the spiritual path. What usually brings them to a spiritual path?
Pain. Struggle. Yeah.
And so if we're not listening, we'll get the opposite. We'll get the pain. We'll get the struggle. We'll get the suffering that then brings us to our knees and says, God, please help me. What do you want from me now? And so the energy is coming that says it's time to connect with source. So are you going to do it through suffering, or are you going to do it by choice? And that is really such a key signature of the last week and a bit of Taurus, and moving into good old Gemini next, which we'll talk about another time.
Yes. Well, and you have you're through your website and your program, you've got ways to help support people through this whole Taurus season. So can you tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll wrap up?
So the Attuned to the Moon, we're calling it a quantum temple now.
Oh, okay. A quantum temple. Love
temple. It. Yeah. So this Attuned to the Moon quantum temple, basically what myself and other people have done we are creating practices of deep rest that help you connect to your core essence through the leadership of the astrology. And it shows up through practices such as yoga nidra, which I call the astro nidras, where I brought those two together, as you mentioned at the beginning, but also through breath work. And then a key thing that I want to bring in for this Jupiter time is more dream work. So we actually have this dream course that's like a slow drip dreaming course. And I'm not the dream teacher. I actually have somebody that comes in and does the dream work, but we have like little short dreaming meditations, like to help you understand, first of all, how do you remember your dreams? How do you go to bed consciously so that you can set yourself up better for dreaming? And so the website is starting to like grow into more than just the yoga nidras, into the breath and the dreaming. And then we've got this really beautiful embodied yin work on there as well. And so all of it is to help you slow down, to remember who you are, to align with your highest. And, having been doing this work for quite some time now, I took everything. I already was online before, but like everything went online when the pandemic began. And so I have been working with a crew of people that I would have never been able to work with through new moon circles and full moon circles and the recordings and all this stuff, the yoga nidra or the astro nidras. And now what I'm hearing from people that they've been here for a year, they're like, I am so grateful for all of the work that we've been doing. And now that we're coming around to the second round of the cycle, like we've done Aries before, now we're coming around to Taurus again. People say the second time you look at a archetype, it's from a whole new perspective. You can say the exact same words, but it's completely different because you've changed. That's, where we began at the beginning of the Aries season when I said the astrology becomes this incredible life coach. Yeah. And we remember that we don't need to do it all at once. You don't. One area of life for 4 weeks.
And it's lovely to be able to do it with such depth because I know you and I know the caliber of people that you bring in must be extraordinary. So, and if you join your community via the link on conversationsfromtheedge.net, there's a little code there that you can use to get 50% off. So it's only this crazy low price of $11 a month. So please, if you decide to join, take advantage of that and go to conversationsfromtheedge.net, use your code and join, because you'll never be the same, and you'll never look at astrology the same way again.
Yeah. And just to be specific, it's 50% off the expander pass.
Oh, the expander pass, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there is another pass on there called the quantum pass, but the way the website works is all this stuff that's pre-recorded, that's cycling with the planetary positions, that's included in your membership. But then we also have live events like the new moon circles, the full moon circles. We do different things for like Mercury retrograde or, different astrological events that are worthy of attention. And those ones aren't included in the membership, but you use cosmic credits. They would call them cosmic credits. It's like the currency of attuned to the moon. And the teachers that I bring in, I actually pay them based off the cosmic credits. So I've created a platform where, yes, there's abundance rolling in, but then I'm redistributing it back out to the community as much as possible. We do a give back. And ideally, as this gets big enough, we're like actually working more in the communities where our population is living. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
So it was wonderful talking with you again. I can't wait till we talk about Gemini and moving forward, because each of these has been so really interesting and has helped me look at astrology and how to work with it in a whole different way. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is your host, Kristine Madera. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation from the edge of consciousness. You can find all our conversations at conversationsfromtheedge.net. You'll also find links to schedule a private conversation with me or any of my friends, as well as tools to help you expand your own consciousness and explore what's possible for you outside the boundaries of your current perceptions. Feel free to use this podcast to start your own conversation by sharing it with friends, on social media, in your blog, or even in your own podcast. And as always, live the adventure of pushing your own edge. It's the most amazing adventure there is.